I'll never forget the Christmas that changed everything. It was supposed to be perfect. You know how it is, right? The first holiday season after a divorce, and you're trying so hard to make everything feel normal for the kids, even though nothing is normal anymore. My daughter, Emma, was 8 years old. Sweet kid, always smiling, always trying to make everyone happy. That was part of the problem, actually. She was too good at hiding when something was wrong. She had these big brown eyes that would light up when she talked about her day, and this laugh that could make even the worst day feel better. She was the kind of kid who made friends easily, who teachers loved, who grandparents bragged about. She was my whole world. The custody arrangement was simple. Emma would spend Christmas Eve with me and Christmas Day with her father, Mark, and his new family. Yeah, he'd moved on fast, really fast. 3 months after our divorce was finalized, he was already engaged to Patricia. They got married in September, and suddenly Emma had a stepmother and 2 stepsisters, Madison and Sophia, ages 10 and 12. I tried to be okay with it. I really did, for Emma's sake. She seemed excited about having sisters, about this new blended family situation. Mark kept telling me how well she was adjusting, how Patricia was wonderful with her, how the girls all got along like they'd known each other forever. He'd send me photos of them all together, smiling at the camera. Everything looked perfect from the outside. But looking back now, I realize Emma had been trying to tell me little things. Offhand comments I'd brushed aside because I didn't want to seem like the bitter ex-wife reading too much into everything. Madison says I talk too much, she'd mentioned once. Sophia doesn't want to share her room when I visit. Patricia says I need to learn their house rules. I'd reassured her, told her it takes time for families to blend, told her to be patient, to be kind, to give everyone a chance. I thought I was helping her adjust. I thought I was being the mature one. I was so wrong. Christmas Eve with me was magical. We had our traditions, the ones that were just ours now. We baked cookies, the recipe my grandmother had passed down, chocolate chip, but with a secret ingredient, a tiny bit of espresso powder that made them taste richer. Emma stood on a stool at the counter, flour on her nose, concentration on her face as she carefully measured ingredients. We watched all her favorite movies, the classic ones, the animated ones, even the cheesy ones. We built a blanket fort in the living room and ate pizza inside it. We left cookies out for Santa, even though she was starting to ask questions about whether he was real. She fell asleep on the couch with her head in my lap, and I sat there for the longest time, just stroking her hair, memorizing the moment. I carried her to bed that night feeling grateful that at least I had these moments, this connection, this pure, uncomplicated love between a mother and daughter. The next morning, Christmas Day, Mark picked her up around 10. Emma was bundled up in her new winter coat, the pink one with the fuzzy hood she'd been begging for since October. I'd saved up for weeks to buy it. She wore her favorite jeans and the sweater her grandmother had knitted. She had a backpack full of presents to open with her dad's family. Carefully wrapped gifts she'd picked out herself, spending her allowance on things she thought they'd like. She hugged me tight before she left. "I love you, Mommy," she whispered. "I love you more, baby. Have the best Christmas ever. Tell me all about it when you get home." She smiled, but something flickered in her eyes, something that looked almost like fear or dread, something I should have paid more attention to. But Mark was waiting in the driveway, engine running, and I convinced myself I was just being paranoid, just being a divorced mom who didn't want to let go. I watched them drive away, Emma's small hand waving from the back window until they turned the corner. The day stretched out long and quiet without her. I tried to enjoy the peace, I read a book, I called my parents, I started prep work for the dinner I'd make when Emma got home. But something felt off, a nagging worry I couldn't shake. The plan was for Mark to bring her back around 8 that evening. We'd have hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, and she could tell me all about her day, about the presents she opened, the dinner they had, the games they played. 8 o'clock came and went. No Emma, no call. I texted Mark at 8:15, "Hey, everything okay? Expected you guys by now." No response. By 8:30, I called. Straight to voicemail. I tried to stay calm. Maybe they were running late. Maybe traffic was bad. Maybe Emma was having such a good time that Mark wanted to give her a few more minutes. But by 9, I was pacing. By 9:30, I was calling repeatedly, my anxiety building with each unanswered ring. Finally, at 9:45, he answered. I could hear noise in the background. Music, laughter, the sound of people having a good time. "Hey, sorry, lost track of time. The girls are having such a great time. Emma's fine. I'll have her home in an hour." Something in his voice felt off, too casual, too dismissive, like I was interrupting something important and he wanted to get back to it. "Mark, it's almost 10. She has school starting up next week and needs her sleep. Plus, we agreed on 8. Yeah, 1 hour, promise." He hung up before I could say anything else. That hour turned into another hour. By 10:45, I was furious. By 11, I was texting again. By 11:30, I was getting in my car. I knew where they lived. A nice house in the suburbs, about 20 minutes away. The kind Mark and I had always dreamed of, but could never quite afford when we were together. Apparently, Patricia's income as a pharmaceutical sales rep made dreams come true. It was one of those neighborhoods where every house looked like it belonged in a magazine. Perfect lawns, perfect landscaping, perfect everything. It was snowing when I pulled up. Big, heavy flakes that made everything look like a Christmas card. The kind of snow Emma loved. The kind that's perfect for snowmen and snow angels. The house was beautiful. Lights everywhere, outlining every window and doorway. A huge wreath on the front door probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Through the large front window, I could see a massive Christmas tree, probably 9 feet tall, covered in perfectly coordinated ornaments and lights. Everything white and gold and silver, very elegant, very expensive looking. I could also see people inside. Mark, Patricia, the 2 stepsisters. They were all gathered around the fireplace, which was roaring with a picture-perfect fire. They were laughing. Patricia was holding a wine glass. The girls were in matching Christmas pajamas, the expensive kind from those trendy stores. Mark had his arm around Patricia's shoulders. The warm glow from inside made the scene look like something from a holiday movie. The perfect family having the perfect Christmas. But where was Emma? I rang the doorbell. Nothing. I rang again. Still nothing. I could hear music playing inside, some jazzy Christmas album, loud enough that maybe they couldn't hear the bell over the noise and their own laughter. I knocked hard, repeatedly. Still nothing. I tried the doorknob. Unlocked. I pushed the door open. "Hello? Mark?" The warmth from inside hit me immediately. It was like stepping into a completely different world. The house was immaculate. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. Like a staged home for a real estate showing. The smell of pine and cinnamon hung in the air. There were candles everywhere, the expensive kind. The kind of home that whispered money and taste, and everything I'd never been able to give Emma. "Mark!" I called louder. He appeared from the living room, drink in hand, face flushed from the warmth and probably alcohol, looking annoyed. really annoyed, like I'd just interrupted the most important moment of his life. "What are you doing here?" "It's almost midnight. You said an hour. That was over 2 hours ago. Where's Emma?" "She's fine. She's upstairs." His tone was dismissive, like I was being ridiculous for even asking. "Why is she upstairs? Why isn't she down here with everyone else?" Patricia appeared behind him, her perfect blonde hair in perfect waves, wearing a cream-colored cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my rent. Her makeup was flawless. Her smile was practiced. Everything about her screamed control and precision. "She said she was tired. We told her she could rest. You know how kids get overwhelmed on Christmas." Something wasn't right. Every instinct I had was screaming. Emma didn't get tired on Christmas. Emma was the kid who fought bedtime on December 25th because she didn't want the day to end. "I want to see her." "You're being dramatic," Mark said, his jaw tight. "She's sleeping. You'll wake her up."
"Then it won't matter if I check on her."
I pushed past them and headed for the stairs. Mark called after me, but I ignored him. Patricia said something about respecting their home, but I didn't care. The upstairs hallway was darker, colder. The sounds of laughter and music from downstairs felt distant, muffled, like they belonged to a different house entirely. There were several doors along the hallway, all closed. Family photos lined the walls. Professional ones. Mark, Patricia, Madison, and Sophia, smiling at the beach, at some resort, at what looked like a skiing trip. Emma wasn't in any of them. "Which room?" I demanded. Mark had followed me up, his face tight with barely contained anger. "End of the hall. But seriously, you're overreacting. This is exactly why we can't co-parent effectively. You're always looking for problems." I ignored him and walked to the last door on the right, took a breath, opened it. The room was freezing. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being dramatic. It was absolutely brutally freezing. My breath came out in visible puffs, like I'd just stepped into a walk-in freezer. The cold hit me like a physical wall. And there, in the corner, on a bare mattress with one thin blanket, was my daughter. She was shivering, violent, uncontrollable shivering, still wearing her coat, the pink one I'd bought her, still wearing her boots, still fully dressed like she'd never been allowed to get comfortable. She was curled up in a tight ball, her arms wrapped around herself, trying desperately to stay warm. The room was bare, not decorated, no Christmas touches, no warmth, just a mattress on the floor, that thin blanket, and my daughter. "Emma!" I ran to her. Her lips had a blue tinge. Her face was pale, almost gray. Her nose was red from the cold. When she looked up at me, her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Dried tear tracks marked her cheeks. "Mommy?" Her voice was small, broken, so different from the cheerful goodbye I'd gotten that morning. "Baby, oh my God, you're freezing!" I wrapped my arms around her, and she was like ice, actually ice cold. Her whole body was rigid with cold, her muscles tight from hours of shivering. "What is going on?" I turned to Mark, who stood in the doorway looking uncomfortable. Patricia was behind him, her arms crossed. "Why is this room so cold? Why is she up here like this? And why is she on a bare mattress?" "The heat vent in this room doesn't work great," Patricia said, her voice matter-of-fact, like this was perfectly reasonable. "We're getting it fixed after the holidays. It's been on our list." "Then why is she in here? You have a huge house. Why isn't she in a warm room? Why isn't she downstairs with everyone else?" The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. She wanted to be alone, Patricia finally said, but her eyes wouldn't meet mine. That's a lie, Emma whispered against me, her voice shaking from both cold and emotion. I asked if I could sit by the fire with them. Multiple times. She said this was my room when I visited and I needed to stay in it. She said the living room was for family time. Real family time. My blood went cold, and it had nothing to do with the temperature in that room. Family time? I looked at Mark, really looked at him. She's your daughter. She is family. She's your blood, your first child. How dare you stand there and let this happen? It's more complicated than that, he started, his voice weak. No, it's really not. Nothing about this is complicated. This is your child, freezing, alone, on Christmas, while you all laughed and celebrated without her. I pulled Emma up, keeping her wrapped tight in my arms. She was so light, lighter than she should be. Had they even fed her? Get her things, her backpack, whatever she brought, now. You can't just take her, Patricia said, stepping forward, her voice sharp now. It's his custody day. Legally, she's supposed to be here until tomorrow morning. You're violating the agreement. Watch me. You put my child in a freezing room by herself on Christmas while you all sat around laughing by the fireplace. You excluded her. You isolated her. You made her feel like she wasn't part of the family. That ends now. I looked at Mark and I saw something in his face that made me realize this wasn't the first time. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was a pattern. This was their normal. How long has this been happening? He wouldn't meet my eyes, just stared at the floor like a guilty child. Mark, look at me. How long has this been happening to our daughter? Patricia's girls need time to adjust, he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. It's been hard on them, having Emma come into their lives. Emma understands. She's been very mature about it. Emma is 8 years old. She doesn't understand why her father's new family doesn't want her around. She shouldn't have to understand that. She shouldn't have to be mature about being excluded and isolated and treated like she doesn't matter. Emma was crying now, silent tears running down her frozen cheeks, her whole body shaking against mine. Did they even feed you? I asked her softly. She shook her head. They ate dinner, turkey and all the sides. It looked really good. Patricia said maybe I could have leftovers later if there were any, but I was up here, so I don't know if there were any. I felt something break inside me, something fundamental and irreparable. I carried her toward the stairs. Mark followed, trying to explain, trying to justify, his words tumbling over each other. It's not what it looks like. Patricia is just protective of her girls. They've been through a lot with their dad leaving. They need stability. Emma visits every other weekend, so it made sense to give Madison and Sophia the better rooms, since they live here full-time. And Patricia makes the meals she knows her girls like. Emma is pickier. It's just easier this way. And keeping Emma separate during family time helps Patricia's girls bond with me without feeling threatened. It's temporary. Just until everyone adjusts. Every word made it worse. Every excuse made me angrier. I ignored all of it and kept walking. Outside, I saw Emma's backpack on the porch, not even inside the house, just thrown out there like garbage, like an afterthought. I grabbed it and carried Emma to my car. Patricia stood in the doorway now, her perfect composure cracking slightly. You're making a mistake. You're going to alienate Emma from her father. You're going to damage their relationship. I turned back to look at her. I'm not the one who damaged anything. You did that. You and Mark did that when you decided to treat a little girl like she was nothing. when you made her feel unwanted in her own father's house, when you left her shivering and alone on Christmas while you played happy family downstairs. That's on you. I got Emma into my car and cranked the heat up as high as it would go, pointed all the vents at her. She was still shivering, still so desperately cold. "I'm sorry, Mommy," she whispered, her teeth chattering.
Baby, you have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing. Do you hear me? None of this is your fault. I tried to be good. I tried to be nice to them. I helped Madison with her puzzle. I complimented Sophia's new earrings. I offered to help Patricia set the table. But they don't like me. They don't want me there. My heart shattered into 1,000,000 pieces.
That's not about you, sweetheart.
That's about them.
They're broken inside. Good people don't treat children this way. There is nothing wrong with you. You are perfect and wonderful and so, so loved. You are kind and thoughtful and generous. You deserve so much better than what they gave you today. I opened all my presents by myself in that room. The ones you got me and the ones Grandma sent. I wanted to show Daddy, but he said later, and then later never came. She fell asleep on the drive home, finally warming up. Her breathing evened out, her body relaxed. I kept checking on her at every red light, making sure she was okay, making sure she was really warming up. When we got home, I carried her inside and ran a warm bath. Not too hot. I knew that could be dangerous when someone was that cold, could even cause a heart attack, but warm enough to help. I sat on the edge of the tub with her, testing the water temperature constantly, adding warm water gradually. Slowly, the color came back to her face. The blue tinge left her lips. She stopped shivering. "I don't want to go back there," she said, her voice small but firm. "I don't want to visit Daddy if it means being with them." "You won't. Not like this. Not until things change drastically. Not until I know you're safe and wanted and loved there the way you deserve to be." I dried her off, got her into warm pajamas, made her hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. We sat on the couch together, wrapped in blankets, and she finally told me everything. It hadn't just been that one night. It had been every single visit since Mark got married. Emma was always put in that cold room. The heat vent apparently hadn't worked since September, since before Mark and Patricia got married. They'd never fixed it because, as Patricia explained, Emma was only there every other weekend, so it wasn't a priority. She ate meals separately after everyone else was done because Patricia's girls didn't like eating with her. They said she chewed too loud. They said she asked too many questions during dinner. So Emma ate alone in that cold room, reheated leftovers on a paper plate. She wasn't allowed in the living room except when Mark specifically called her down. She wasn't allowed to watch TV with them. She wasn't allowed to touch anything in Madison and Sophia's rooms. She wasn't allowed to use the nice bathroom. There was a specific bathroom for her, the one in the basement, that they never used. The stepsisters had been cruel in that casual, careless way that kids can be when they know adults will back them up. They hid Emma's things. They told her she was annoying. They made fun of her clothes, her interests, her friends. And Patricia had encouraged it, or at least never stopped it. She'd laugh along with her daughters. She'd agree that Emma needed to learn not to be so needy, so attention-seeking, so immature. And Mark had let it happen because he was so desperate to keep his new wife happy, because he was terrified of another failed marriage, because he'd convinced himself that if he just gave it more time, everyone would adjust and it would all work out. He'd chosen his new family over his daughter, over and over again, every single visit. The next morning, first thing, I called a lawyer, explained everything. She told me to document absolutely everything, take photos, get statements, keep records. That afternoon, I took Emma to the pediatrician. Dr. Harrison had known Emma since she was born. She took one look at her and knew something was very wrong. Emma had lost weight. She was anxious, and when Dr. Harrison asked her about visits with her dad, Emma broke down and told her everything. Dr. Harrison documented it all. She made notes about the weight loss, about the signs of neglect and emotional abuse. She took photos of Emma's chapped hands and the dry patches on her skin from the cold. She wrote a detailed report. She also called Child Protective Services. As a mandated reporter, she had to. 2 days later, a social worker showed up at Mark's house. He was furious, called me screaming, said I was vindictive, that I was trying to keep Emma from him, that I was making things up to get revenge for the divorce. Patricia sent me messages about how I was turning Emma against them, how I was the problem, how I was poisoning Emma's mind. She said I was jealous of their happy family. She said I was a bitter ex-wife who couldn't move on. But Emma told her story to the social worker, to the guardian ad litem who was appointed, to the therapist she started seeing, and eventually to the judge. And the truth came out. All of it. The social worker interviewed Madison and Sophia separately. They confirmed everything, thinking they were defending their mother, not realizing they were actually making it worse. They talked about how Emma was annoying and their mom said it was okay to ignore her, about how she had to stay in her room because their family time was special, and Emma wasn't really family. The investigation revealed that Mark had paid for extensive renovations to the house, new kitchen, new bathrooms, new furniture. But he'd never fixed the heat vent in Emma's room because it wasn't a priority, because Emma was only there every other weekend. The custody arrangement was modified. Supervised visits only, at a neutral location, and only after completing family therapy. Individual therapy for Mark, family therapy for Mark and Emma, and no contact with Patricia or her daughters until further notice. Mark was furious, but honestly, I didn't care, not even a little bit. That was 3 years ago now. Emma is 11. She's happy, she's confident, she knows she's loved. She's thriving in ways she never did before. She sees her dad sometimes. The therapy has helped some. He's learned to set boundaries with Patricia. He's better at standing up for Emma now. He's learned that being a parent means making your child the priority, not your new spouse's comfort. But the relationship isn't what it was, and it probably never will be. There's a wariness in Emma now when she talks about him, a guardedness. She loves him, but she doesn't trust him the way she used to, and that's something he'll have to live with. Patricia and Mark are still together, though I've heard it's rocky. Apparently, she wasn't happy about the therapy requirements or the custody changes. Apparently, she felt victimized by the whole process. Apparently, she still doesn't understand what she did wrong. The stepsisters are teenagers now, and according to Emma, they're still not friendly when she occasionally sees them at exchanges. But Emma doesn't care anymore. She's found her own strength. Sometimes, usually around Christmas, I think about that night, about finding her in that freezing room, shivering and alone, while the people who were supposed to love her laughed in the next room, warm and comfortable and completely indifferent to her suffering. It still makes me angry. It still breaks my heart. It probably always will. But it also reminds me to always trust my instincts, to pay attention when something feels off, to believe my child when she tells me something is wrong, even if she's not using words, to look past the surface, past the reassurances, past the perfect pictures. Emma is my priority. She always was, and she always will be, and I will never,
ever let anyone make her feel less than cherished again. No second wife, no stepfamily, no one.
That's a promise I made to her that Christmas night, sitting on the bathroom floor while she warmed up in the tub, tears streaming down both our faces. And it's one I'll keep for the rest of my life.
Because she deserves that. Every child deserves that. To be chosen, to be prioritized, to be loved without conditions or compromises.
And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure she knows that's exactly what she is to me.
Thank you for spending your time with Alicia. If this story moved you, let your support be felt.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Your presence inspires the next tale.
Until our voices meet again. Stay calm, stay curious, and keep dreaming.